Hello, everybody. This is Raj Ramsaran for our class Environmental Toxicology. Today, we're going to talk about the Superfund Site Assessment and Remediation Plan for the Petroleum Products Corporation site in Pembroke Park, Florida. The Earth is a fine place and worth fighting for. Ernest Hemingway. This quote resonates deeply with environmental toxicology because it reminds us that despite the damage caused by pollution and industrial waste, our environment is still worth protecting and restoring. The fight against contaminated Superfund sites, such as the Petroleum Product Corporation site, is not just about cleanup. It's about ensuring a safe and habitable planet for future generations. Through science, remediation, and policy, we have the opportunity to preserve the integrity of our ecosystems and the communities. The Petroleum Products Corporation Superfund site in Pembroke Park, Florida, is a designated EPA National Priorities List site due to severe contamination from past industrial activities. Hazardous substances such as lead, arsenic, polychlorinated biphenyls, trichloride ethylene, dioxins, and vinyl chloride have been detected in the soil and groundwater, posing long-term risks to human health and the environment. Ongoing remediation efforts aim to mitigate these risks and prevent further contamination. The hazard ranking system score 40.11 highlights the site's significant environmental impact. The map above illustrates its geographic location in Pembroke Park, Broward County, Florida, and the proximity to major infrastructure such as I-95, West Pembroke Road, and local schools including Hollandale High School and South Area Alternative Schools. These factors contribute to the importance of monitoring and remediation efforts to prevent exposure risk to nearby residents, businesses, and students. Additionally, the site was proposed for listing as a Superfund site on April 10, 1985, and officially added to the NPL list on July 22nd, 1987. As you can see, the red boundary in the map marks the affected area, where nearby industrial facilities and residential communities, indicating potential pathways for contamination migration. This reinforces the need for continued environmental oversight and remedial strategies. This report outlines key contaminants, their impacts, and proposed remediation strategies to safeguard the environment and community health. I would encourage everyone to view the URL at the top of this slide as it takes the user to a web application that gives you more of a visual of the map showing how many contaminated sites and Superfund sites are in this area. Not only does it give this area, the data comes from the EPA website, which shows the entire nation. The Petroleum Products Corporation site was historically used for petroleum refining and chemical storage. Over decades of operations, hazardous materials accumulated in the soil and groundwater, leading to significant contamination. Regulatory actions began in the late 20th century, with the site being officially designated as a Superfund site under the Comprehensive Environmental Response, Compensation, and Liability Act. The site is under federal and state regulatory oversight. Cleanup efforts, including partial remediation and monitoring, have been undertaken, but contamination remains a concern. The Environmental Protection Agency has ongoing monitoring initiatives, but full remediation has yet to be achieved. So as we pointed out before, some contaminants of concern. Lead, number one, is known for its neurological and developmental toxicity, particularly affecting children. Arsenic, a potent carcinogen with long-term health risks. Trichloroethylene, linked to kidney cancer and immune system disorders. Dioxins, persistent organic pollutants with significant bioaccumulation and endocrine disrupting effects. Polychlorinated biphenyls, persistent in the environment and known to cause reproductive and developmental issues. Vinyl chloride associated with liver cancer and neurological impairments. According to the Human Toxicity Report, contaminants such as dioxins, arsenic, and vinyl chloride present severe carcinogenic risk at extremely low exposure levels. Lead exposure has been linked to cognitive decline and cardiovascular issues, while TCE has been associated with immune system dysfunction. The synergistic effects of multiple contaminants amplify health risks, making comprehensive remediation essential. So here we have the toxicity comparison table from our human toxicity report. And let's break this down a little bit. The minimum RFD actually stands for reference dose. This represents the safe daily exposure limit for ingestion without expected health effects. As we can see, dioxins have extremely low RFD, indicating even trace ingestion may cause harm. The cancer slope factor indicates cancer risk per unit exposure. Dioxins and arsenic have very high slope factor, highlighting significant carcinogenic potential. Acute toxicity, POD, point of departure. This value measures the exposure level at which short-term health effects occur. Vinyl chloride has the highest value, meaning acute harm requires higher dosage compared to dioxins or arsenic. In this other chart, we show the acute toxicity POD from our human toxicity report. This chart shows the point of departure values for contaminants. Vinyl chloride, as we can see, has the highest threshold for acute harm, while dioxins require very low dosage to cause effects. This emphasizes the importance of managing dioxins, even at trace levels. Here we have another chart that shows the cancer slope factor for contaminants. So this chart visually compares the cancer risk associated with different contaminants. Arsenic and vinyl chloride appear as the most concerning based on long-term exposure. So now we're going to take a look at some of the environmental impacts. The environmental toxicity data report that we did highlights that dioxins have an exceptionally high bioaccumulation factor, indicating severe long-term risks to aquatic ecosystem. Heavy metals such as lead and arsenic persist in soil and groundwater, endangering wildlife and local water supplies. PCBs contribute to bioaccumulation in fish species, posing risk to both ecosystem and human consumers. So when we look at this chart, the bar chart illustrates the bioconcentration factor, BCF, predictions for the analyzed contaminants. BCF values represent the extent to which a contaminant can accumulate in living organisms, particularly aquatic life, when exposed to a contaminated environment. The higher the BCF values indicate a greater likelihood of bioaccumulation, which can lead to magnified effects up the food chain. Dioxins exhibit exceptionally high BCF values, demonstrating their significant bioaccumulation potential. This indicates that even small amounts of dioxins in the environment can persist and build up within organisms over time, posing risk to both ecosystems and human health. Lead has no BCF predictions were available for lead, suggesting either a lack of data or its classification as non-bioaccumulative. This emphasizes the need for improved data reporting to confirm its ecological impact. And some chemicals show incomplete or missing data, highlighting gaps in monitoring or evaluation. These gaps can hinder effective environmental risk assessment and management strategies. So here we have this pie chart, the water quality distribution among contaminants. And this pie chart visualizes the distribution of water quality values for the contaminants analyzed. The water quality values reflect the maximum contaminant level, the MCL, which is the highest level of a contaminant allowed in drinking water without adverse health effects. Data on the dioxins and the lead are provided, with dioxins showing an extreme low threshold. This low threshold signifies its high toxicity and the risk associated with even minimal exposure via water sources. What we also noticed was there was a significant portion of the contaminants lack water quality data, which is reflected as not available in the chart. This lack of information highlights the need for more robust environmental monitoring and regulatory enforcement. Now we're going to move into risk management strategies. And before I go over some of these bullets, I wanted to point out this graphic image I have on the right. It points out some key components of using risk management techniques. Identify, assess, streamline, prioritize, centralize, mitigate, and monitor. So to mitigate contamination risk, the following remediation strategies are recommended: soil excavation and removal. So we need to start prioritizing areas with the highest contamination. Chemical stabilization. We want to do this to prevent leaching of heavy metals into the groundwater. Bioremediation. Utilizing microbial and plant-based systems to break down organic contaminants. And contaminant measures. Capping contaminated sites to prevent further exposure. So now we want to move on to monitoring and remediation recommendations. And as we saw in the last slide, monitoring is also a part of our risk management strategies. Now, long-term monitoring is critical to ensuring the effectiveness of remediation efforts. The following actions are some proposed actions we can take: periodic water and air testing to track the contamination levels and trends, community reporting mechanism, establishing online portals and local meetings for public updates, coordination with environmental agencies, which ensure compliance with EPA and state regulations. As you can see in the graphic that I added, it gives us an idea of arsenic remediation. It's just a visual so we can have an idea of some of the strategies we can implement for remediation. So some of the things we want to think about is community involvement and public awareness. Engagement with the public is vital for successful remediation efforts. Community outreach programs should include public meetings and workshops. Regular town hall meetings should be conducted to provide updates on remediation efforts, answer public concerns, and gather community input. These sessions should also include environmental health experts who can explain the risk and necessary precautions in simple, accessible language. Local advisory committees. A community advisory board should be established to allow residents, business owners, and school representatives to voice their concerns and work directly with regulatory agencies. Community health screenings. Free health checkups and screenings should be provided to detect any potential health effects from exposure to sites, contaminants. Early detection and medical support can help mitigate the long-term health issues. Environmental education programs. Local schools could be encouraged to include environmental science curriculum focused on contamination awareness and remediation efforts. This could help young students understand the importance of maintaining a clean, safe environment, considering the site is so close to several schools. Neighborhood water and soil testing access. Residents should have the opportunity to request independent water and soil testing for their properties. Testing kits and local lab partnerships should be provided to ensure public access to contamination information. They should have an emergency response plan. Clear action plans should be developed in case of any further contamination exposure or environmental hazard. Public workshops will help educate residents on safety protocols, including evacuation plans, exposure prevention, and reporting procedures. And considering we're living in South Florida, bilingual information campaigns, outreach materials, including brochures, posters, and social media campaigns, should be available in multiple languages to ensure accessibility for non-English speaking community members. And online tracking and transparency. A publicly accessible online dashboard should be created with residents, where residents can track air and water quality reports, ongoing remediation progress, and upcoming public meetings. This tool could promote accountability and ensure that all stakeholders have access to the latest information. And lastly, collaboration with local organizations. Partnering with environmental nonprofit universities and local advocacy groups could help strengthen the outreach efforts and provide additional resources to impacted residents. By prioritizing community engagement and transparency, this plan aims to ensure that local citizens are not only informed but also actively participating in decisions about their health and environment. A collaborative approach would lead to a safer, healthier future for Pembroke Park residents while fostering trust between the community and environmental agencies. So engagement with the public is vital for successful remediation efforts. Community outreach programs should include educational workshops, online resource platforms, and stakeholder meetings to facilitate dialogue between the residents, environmental experts, and regulatory agencies. Because as we saw from the reports and charts above, some of these chemicals are very harmful to human health and impact on the human body. With those items in mind, in conclusion, while significant progress has been made, challenges remain in achieving full remediation at the Petroleum Products Corporation site. A structured approach involving scientific assessment, targeted remediation strategies, and community engagement will ensure long-term environmental health and safety. Ongoing efforts must focus on addressing the most hazardous contaminants, closing data gaps, and strengthening regulatory oversight. Expanding remediation efforts would help implement advanced soil and groundwater remediation technologies such as in-situ chemical oxidation and phytoremediation to accelerate contamination breakdown. Enhancing regulatory compliance. We can be working closely with the EPA and state environmental agencies to meet updated safety and remediation standards, ensuring long-term compliance. Strengthening long-term monitoring. We could increase the frequency and scope of environmental testing for soil, water, and air quality to ensure contaminants remain below harmful thresholds. Investing in sustainable remediation technologies. We could utilize innovative, eco-friendly solutions such as biochar amendments for soil stabilization and nanotechnology for pollution degradation. Community health and safety programs. Establish regular health screenings and education campaigns to inform residents about potential risk and productivity measures. And the public engagement and transparency. We can create a public-facing dashboard where residents and stakeholders can track remediation progress, access test results, and submit concerns. From what we've found from this plan, there is some items to still be addressed. This site sits in the middle of a residential community and schools. So some of these strategies and recommendations could potentially help any long-term risk to citizens that live in that community. If there's any